Okay, let's go over this assignment here. You have the written answers here, but I want to just talk it out through too in case it's easier for you to comprehend this way. So first lead here, automatically, we know what the problem is. Two sentences, right? This lead is two sentences. Leads are one sentence. Very rare do you do two. So, hey, not a big deal here. This one's an easy fix. This is a good lead, this first sentence that you had. This would be absorbed into your nut graph, which is, you can see here, I have as my second paragraph. There would be more to this paragraph. You probably have a few more sentences of context. But right away, I know, hey, this is too long. I don't need a two-sentence lead. This first one works. It's broad enough. I have an understanding of what happened. All the other details can get absorbed now to the other paragraph. Okay, lead two, a little trickier, but as you can see here, you're keeping names, ages, specific street addresses out of it, especially for a hard news lead. So you don't need Jim Smith, 31, what street they're from, too much information. You don't want to bog the reader down with too many details right away. It's too much for them to process. They're just trying to understand the story to begin with. So what is a good fix to it? Well, instead of listing the person's name and age, just give them a descriptor. A man. A man was injured on Thursday night after he jumped out of a moving car. Then in your nut graph is when you start to give all the details. Jim Smith, 31, Maple Street, Meriden, blah, 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 and you keep going on, right? And there, of course, be more to this paragraph, but the big issue here is too many details. Okay, number two here. We take a look at here. Automatically, what do I see? The paragraphs are way too long. Paragraphs should generally be 1 to 3 sentences. That's a guideline. Sometimes you can break that, but 1 to 3 is your zone. And this one definitely can be broken up. So every time there is a new thought or a transition, make it a new paragraph. Here's how the story originally was broken up. So this is taken from an original story. Here is the first paragraph, right? Now, they introduce somebody's name. That's a kind of a transition. This guy was not named here before in this sentence, or in this paragraph, right, which is one sentence. So make it a new paragraph. They keep it one sentence. Now they bring somebody else's name. That's new. It's a transition. Now we're talking about somebody else. Make it a new paragraph. After you finish up with that, now we're starting to talk about businesses, right? Lots of businesses have restrooms that require it. So now it's transitioning off of him. Yes, this is all related. It's the same story, but you can see these natural transitions. You could have maybe put this quote, if I was writing it, I could maybe have put this quote, this paragraph up here, but look how they're playing it safe, and that's fine. Now we're talking about a quote, so it's a little bit of a transition, new paragraph, and then once that quote finishes, they go back into drivers also need more time, and so you're seeing here that they've broken up. Could you have done it maybe a little differently? Sure. Maybe these two could have been combined or something, but whatever the case is, whether you combine two of these or like I was going to combine the quote with this paragraph, even if you do something like that, it's not this, right? It's not this. Okay, what is wrong with the way this story is written? Fix it. Taking a look at here, there's too much subjective language in this for it to be a news story. Remove the subjective language. So let's take a look. Rested after a week off, the 1-5 UConn football team will head to Sunshine State to face the undefeated Florida squad Saturday night. Everyone in Connecticut will be cheering for their hometown Huskies. No. You cannot make that statement with confidence. Everyone in Connecticut. I'm not a UConn fan. Oh no, I can't believe Professor Chiara said that. Well, there's plenty of people here that aren't necessarily UConn fans and will be rooting for them. So, this is too specific. You can say many in Connecticut. You can say, with Connecticut with the Huskies being one of Connecticut's big sports teams, right? I mean, those are fair statements to say. But when you do an absolute like this, all of a sudden you're putting in some subjective language. You might think everybody's a UConn fan, but that is not true. Unfortunately, it will be hot in Florida. Even unfortunately is too much of subjective language. Maybe some people love it being hot, right? Maybe the players want it to be hot, right? They play the best there. You might be unfortunate for you think, but why keep this word in here? Just get rid of the unfortunate. It will be hot in Florida, so the players and fans, may have to adjust, right? Will not have to, but may have to adjust to heat temperatures that they're not used to. That's fair to say, right? I know you might be sitting there going like, "Wow, it's pretty much the same thing," but there is a distinction here. There's a little bit of nuance. You're just trying to avoid absolutes. You're just trying to avoid putting anything that is completely your opinion, right? Just state the facts, and the fact could be it will be hot in Florida, so that could be a fact, right? It's going to be 90 plus. And so players and fans that are used to Connecticut cold weather may need to adjust. I think that's a fair statement to say, right? It's also lucky for fans that tickets to South Florida game are only $25. See, again, so you say, well, what's wrong with that, Professor Chiar, with lucky? Well, you might not think $25 is a lot, but some other people might think $25 is a lot of money, right? It's subjective. It's all subjective. $25, listen to my elitist self right now, $25 to me is not that much. Okay, I do that. When I was 18, $25 was a lot, right? That was it was a day's worth of work, depending on whatever job I had at the time. So all I'm trying to say here is, why put it's lucky? Tickets in the game will be $25. Avoid that subjective language. And I point that all out here too. Okay, last one. Let's see here. We have the quote here. I'm trying to actually remember this one. That's why I'm stalling here. Started a sentence with the quote, then attributed. Okay. Also, do not include words explaining that this is the answer that was given to the person asked about. Okay, so we have the quote one, right? The first quote right here, and we're talking about this veteran. He said this when he was asked how he felt, and then we get to the quote. Lead with the quote, right? Remember that phrase. Lead with the quote. So your sentence should start with the quote. I'm proud of it. That motivated me to become a U.S. citizen, said VJ Singh, I think you'd say his name, Singh, a U.S. Army veteran, right? Lead with the quote. So if you do all this part here about talking to him and that he was asked the question, that's like bogging down this quote. That's a lot of extra clutter. What you want, the quote is the most important part. Get the quote out, because that's supposed to be, remember, the spice of the story, right? So get that quote out, make it bold, make it stand out, and then you attribute it. Then you say who it is, and you don't have to say that you asked the question, because it's kind of assumed that that question was asked. Why else is that person just answering it, right? So lead with the quote. Taking a look here, same thing. You went on to state, right? No, start with a quote. You prioritize, blah, 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 blah. Sang said, right? You attribute, so quote first, attribute after. Sometimes I know students will say, well, how do we know who's saying that? Look, you're reading this pretty quickly. You can process this. Again, what's more important is the quote. So someone's seeing the quote. It's hopefully advancing the story. It's giving it some flavor to it. It's making a little bit of an impact on the reader. And then right after that, now that they're interested, they're hooked, they can now attribute it to somebody, and then it all maybe connects and makes sense if they weren't completely even said who said it at first, right? It's not like it's going to be so confusing that you didn't say who said it first that they're not going to understand anything from the story. It's just a different way of making sure that the most important part is standing out. So that whole big rant I gave you, what I'm ultimately saying is you start the sentence with the quote first and attribute. Stick with that model. Yes, again, it's a guideline. It can be broken every once in a while. Sometimes it's done to clear up confusion. There are times for it, for sure. But get used to this style. And actually, though, never do. And when asked about blah, 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 you don't need that part. You really don't. That is just clutter, right? If you want to say he stated or he went on to state, you can get away with that sometimes. Maybe it makes sense. It really doesn't make sense to say, when asked in this kind of setting, he said, they already know that, okay? All right. Hopefully that makes this less confusing for you. Of course, if there are still any questions, email me. But these are just those common mistakes I see pop up. So this will be a good guide for you in the future.